Is it true that Bitcoin really dropped to 2 cents on Revolut? I talk about that because there was some kind of flash crash or something very strange that happened. I'll show you what took place, including the official sources, because there's a lot of fake news circulating around this topic. We're also going to talk about many other things today, a massive migration to Chainlink, Ethereum with Tom Lee announcing a slowdown in purchases, Zcash, and a lot more. Hello everyone and welcome to CryptoRed, the crypto news channel. Let's get straight into the news. First, let's talk about Arbitrum. In a previous video, I told you about the vote that took place to unlock the $70 million linked to the Kelp hack and the Aave issues. But now there's a very interesting article saying that even though the vote passed, it may still not actually be executed. Why? Because there are people who need to carry out the execution of that vote. Basically, they need to bridge the gap between the governance proposal and the actual smart contract execution, and there are still technical and legal steps involved, and potentially they could be blockers at that level. If some of the people involved are American, they may simply refuse to execute it because they could be exposed to legal risks. There are ongoing legal procedures trying to block these funds, so unfortunately this story is not over yet. I really hope it ends well and that the funds eventually get unlocked, but for now there's still some suspense around it. Now let's move on to the Bitcoin story. Bitcoin at 2 cents. A lot of things have been circulating today about this. We saw screenshots like this one showing a notification saying that the neobank Revolut has a Bitcoin that dropped to 2 cents. And even on the official charts available inside Revolut, you can clearly see that there are some kind of flash crash. Bitcoin seems to have dropped to around 34,000 euros, or the dollar equivalent. So there was really a crash. That part is visible directly on the official charts. CoinDesk also looked into it. CoinDesk, the news website. They published other charts from Revolut, and again, we can clearly see the flash crash, not to 2 cents, but around 29,000 pounds. So yeah, on Revolut, Bitcoin really appears to have been almost cut in half for a short moment. That part seems confirmed. What we don't know is whether anyone was actually able to buy Bitcoin at that price. And again, it was not 2 cents. All the images circulating, I don't know, maybe they're fake, but they're not from official sources. CoinDesk did not find a reliable source confirming the 2 cents, like I said, and I personally haven't found the one either. So maybe that part was exaggerated, and maybe Bitcoin never actually dropped to 2 cents. In any case, if you receive that notification, I'll be very interested to know, so drop a comment. But yeah, the fact that Bitcoin truly dropped by almost half on Revolut, this is confirmed. The next question is, did anyone manage to take advantage of it? Normally, when you see a price movement like that one on a chart, it usually means that at least one trade happened and at that level before the price was quickly corrected. But we don't know for sure, we don't have confirmation, and I haven't seen any official statements from Revolut on this. What seems likely is that there was some kind of bug on the app. These things can happen, and that's also why you need to be very careful, especially when you use leverage. Sometimes small flash crashes like this can happen, and then they can liquidate you. So be very careful with that. If Revolut publish an official statement, I'll let you know, but yeah, for now, not confirmed. The 2 cents part is really not confirmed. So let's talk about something more worrying. Let's talk about LayerZero and the migration toward Chainlink that is continuing. Chainlink is basically the king of DeFi when it comes to oracles, and it also has this whole bridging side of things, CCIP. And right now, more and more protocols and applications are migrating to Chainlink. Solv, the protocol that managed around $700 million in Bitcoin, announced that it is migrating from LayerZero to Chainlink. Why? Because LayerZero was exploited a few weeks ago. We talked about it a lot, and now people clearly have less confidence in the way LayerZero works, so they are moving to Chainlink. Now be careful here. We have Zach Rines, who works at Chainlink, explaining all of this, but of course he's kind of biased. But there are a lot of news reports about this. We also had Kelp migrating from Chainlink. This is confirmed. I already talked about this, and we also have, the DAO, the equivalent of Aave on Ink, the Kraken's blockchain. They were using an oracle built by Chaos Labs, and Chaos Labs got hacked, and the Chaos Labs oracle was exploited. So yeah, this platform is also migrating from Chaos Labs to Chainlink. So Chaos Labs mainly does risk management, but they also have oracles, and their oracle on Aave had already been exploited a month ago, I believe, or a few months ago, and now their oracle on the blockchain of Kraken Inc. Has also been exploited. So honestly, with Chaos Labs, it's starting to be a lot, and people are now coming back to Chainlink, and Chainlink is good. It's a strong project. But we also have to be careful with Chainlink because there are also centralization risks too with them. We should not forget that there's still a multisig. We don't know exactly who is behind that multisig, and with a certain number of signers. I don't remember the exact number, maybe 5 out of 9, if I remember correctly, to change things in Chainlink. So yes, there is a risk, but by default, I still think Chainlink is more secure than LayerZero. Now, other things happened the last 24 hours. Let's talk about Ethereum and Tom Lee. Tom Lee, the head of BitMine, the company that is accumulating a huge amount of Ethereum and is getting close to the 5% of the supply of Ethereum. They already have 4%. Well, they just said that they will probably slow down. They will slow down the purchases. They're not going to buy it as quickly as they were before. And the last percentage point they still want to buy will be accumulated gradually. It will not happen immediately. So it's probably not going to happen over the next few weeks. If they keep the same pace, I believe it will be more in like a few months or 4 to 6 months. They said there's no real reason to accelerate, and they also want to use their money for other things in crypto. They already have a massive amount of ETH. They also have exposure to a company that accumulates WorldCoin. They also have invested in Mr. Beast's company. That is quite strange, but yeah, they do a lot of stuff. So it's a bit of bad news for ETH because it means less regular buying pressure on Ethereum, but it's also good news in a way because I've always said that I would be worried if BitMine accumulated too much ETH. If BitMine ended up holding, 10, 15% of all ETH, that would honestly be strange. And let's talk about another cryptocurrency. Let's talk about Zcash. Zcash, the privacy-focused crypto, they had just announced their roadmap for their post-quantum roadmap. And very soon, in about a month, they're going to introduce wallets that are not exactly quantum resistant yet, but there will be quantum recovery possible. So this is good to be prepared for quantum, but they also want to greatly improve the performance of the network over also the next few updates. But the major news is that by 2027, they announced that Zcash aims to become fully quantum resistant. So in a year, and that's a really aggressive timeline. Ethereum's timeline is 2029, if I remember correctly. And Bitcoin, we don't have any timeline for Bitcoin. Personally, I see Zcash as a direct competitor to Bitcoin in the long term because it's basically the same idea as BTC, except that it adds the privacy on top. It's adds privacy on top, not by default, but you have the choice to send crypto privately. Of course, the more direct competitor is Monero, but when I talk about the ultimate target, I mean Bitcoin. Ethereum, for example, is different enough from Bitcoin. It doesn't have the fixed 21 million supply like Zcash have. It has smart contracts. It really is differentiated from BTC. It's a whole new object. But Zcash in the end is basically Bitcoin with privacy added on top, like Monero. And recently, the token of Zcash has been pumping. He's pumped quite a lot, over 100% the last few months, just over the last 30 days. So yeah, that's a big jump for Zcash. I already mentioned that Multicoin, the fund that was previously really focused on Solana, has also announced a position in Zcash. So yeah, there's a lot of news recently about Zcash. I don't know what you think. Do you prefer Zcash or Monero or something else when it comes to privacy? Tell me in the comments. We talk a bit less about the privacy narrative these days, but I still think there is a lot happening, and I think this narrative will remain relevant for years. We will always need ways to send funds confidentially. And a lot of projects are trying to introduce these kinds of features. Polygon, for example, recently introduced a way to send USDC and other assets privately. A lot of projects like Polygon also did the same. I'm talking about Starknet, for instance. So the real question is, will privacy happen at the layer 1 level? Will projects like Zcash or even Aztec? When I mean layer 1, I mean at the blockchain level. Or will it happen at the application level, like we currently see on Ethereum? For example, you can use Railgun on top of Ethereum to send funds privately. This is the real debate, and nobody has the final answer. And if you have the answer, then you probably know which crypto assets fit your thesis, and you should just buy it. In any case, I think what's happening around privacy is really fascinating, and this is what I wanted to share with you today about the latest crypto news. Don't forget to subscribe, and I see you on Monday for the latest news. Bye-bye.